There are many actors who have appeared in both Doctor Who and Marvel, probably too many to count, definitely too many to include in this video, but let's look through a bunch of the actors who have shared the Marvel Universe and the Whoniverse. Whilst this video is about the actors who appeared in both, the bigger focus is on the Marvel side of it. Bear in mind, if you haven't seen certain Marvel projects, this video may contain spoilers about certain characters. Starting off with the man who was the Doctor when the show returned, the 9th Doctor himself, Christopher Eccleston, appeared in For the Dark World as antagonist Malekith. He didn't enjoy being part of the film too much though, and he claimed that he took the role for the money but quickly regretted joining the film. This is mostly down to a minimum of 6 hours of makeup every day for filming. He claimed that Marvel never told him that he'd need to go through all the makeup process just to film the role, calling out Marvel as dishonest. This gives something else that Marvel and Doctor Who have in common: Eccleston having a bad experience. Eccleston wasn't the only Doctor to take on a villainous role in Marvel. David Tennant, who was the 10th and 14th Doctor, was cast in the Netflix series Jessica Jones. It's not exactly clear where it stands within the MCU, but it's still a Marvel project, and it could easily follow into the MCU like Daredevil seems to be doing. His role in Jessica Jones was as Kilgrave, the main antagonist of season 1 of the show, with making guest appearances in the future series. He has more recently hinted that if he was asked to return to the MCU, he would do it. Another Doctor and another villain. Matt Smith, the 11th Doctor, took on the advice to join Marvel based on friend and co-star Karen Gillan, who herself stars in Marvel movies. The difference is, the experience that Karen was recommending to Matt was the MCU, Marvel Studios produced films under Disney. Matt, however, was hired under the notoriously poor-performing Sony Marvel franchise. He starred in Morbius as Milo, former friend turned enemy of Michael Morbius. He admitted he was taken aback by the poor reception of the film, but he had learned to shake off the flop easily enough due to being part of Terminator Genesis, which also performed poorly. He also claimed that he was left confused by his character for the film due to not knowing anything about the backstory or where the future was. Considering we've already mentioned her being part of Marvel, let's move on to Karen Gillan. As I said previously, she had a good experience with Marvel and recommended Matt to join. Karen is well known as the first companion of Matt Smith's 11th Doctor, but that wasn't her first appearance in Doctor Who. She actually appeared as a soothsayer in David Tennant's final season of the show. After leaving Doctor Who, she became more known worldwide as Nebula in Marvel. Starting off as more of a villainous character, as time progressed, she became part of the Guardians instead, even appearing in 2 of the Avengers films. Returning back to the Doctors, this time it's a little bit of a different twist on the Doctors. David Bradley has played multiple roles in the Whoniverse. He played a Sand Chief in Sarah Jane Adventures, Solomon opposite Matt Smith's 11th Doctor, and even a recast First Doctor. He also stars in the 50th anniversary TV film, An Adventure in Space and Time, which is why he was cast as the First Doctor in the actual show later on. However, before any of this Doctor Who stuff, he had a role in the MCU with Captain America the First Avenger. He was the church keeper that the Red Skull meets at the start of the film while searching for the Tesseract. Richard E. Grant has appeared as 2 different non-canon versions of the Doctor, but he made his way into the actual show as Walter Simeon and later the Great Intelligence, using Walter's appearance. He would later join the Marvel Fox universe in Logan, where he played the main antagonist to Wolverine as Xander Rice, who played a part in almost making mutants extinct, and then would go on to create his own mutants, including a clone of Wolverine, to sell them on as weapons. A few years later, he would finally transition into the actual MCU, in the Disney Plus series Loki. In fact, he would play a variant of Loki in Season 1, where it was revealed that during Infinity War, this version of Loki actually fooled Thanos. Instead of dying, he used a projection, and Thanos didn't think anything of it. This Loki survived, went into hiding, and eventually missed Thor, came out, and this is where he was caught. Toby Jones was the dark manifestation of the Doctor, who, in my opinion, could have been used a little more than just his one appearance on the show. But in Marvel, he appeared as Hydra scientist Dr. Arnim Zola. After World War II ended, S.H.I.E.L.D. recruited Hydra scientists to build S.H.I.E.L.D., including Zola, who would be working from the inside to corrupt the organisation. He would later die, but his mind would be uploaded to a computer system that would eventually get destroyed. He would then later appear as an alternate version of the character, which in turn revealed Toby Jones still may have a future in the MCU. When it was revealed, he was uploaded into 2 different sites. Sacha Dhawan has played a role in both inside and outside the universe. Inside, he's well known as being the Spy Master, the version of the Master who would go up against the 13th Doctor. Outside of the show, he appeared in the 50th anniversary special An Adventure in Space and Time, playing the role of Boris Hussein, the director of the first series of the show, among other serials. However, over at Marvel, he had a role on Netflix's Iron Fist. He was a friend turned enemy of protagonist Danny Rand, where both of them competed to become the Iron Fist. He would eventually become jealous of his friend and let his anger in and turned against Danny. Jenna Coleman was the final companion of the 11th Doctor and the first of the 12th. She was notable for being the companion for the 50th anniversary, as well as many considering her to be the companion who tried to take over being the Doctor. But before she was pretending to be the Doctor and flying through space, she made a small appearance in Captain America: The First Avenger. Early on in the film, before Steve Rogers had his serum, she was on a double date with Bucky and Steve at the Stark Expo. As this was set during World War II, she never reappeared again, as after this film finished, more or less every single film took place in the modern day. Letitia Wright appeared back in Peter Capaldi's run on Doctor Who as an alien who resided on Trap Street within London during the episode that Clara would die in, during her attempts to save Rixie. In Marvel though, she would appear as Wakandan Princess Shuri. After the passing of Chadwick Boseman in real life, Marvel decided that T'Challa would also pass away, which allowed Letitia Wright to star as the new Black Panther in the sequel. Another Doctor Who to Black Panther actor is Daniel Kaluuya. He appeared earlier on Doctor Who than Letitia did, starring in one of the specials during David Tennant's farewell tour from the show. Appearing in Planet of the Dead as Barclay, he was one of the people on the bus who attempted to help the Doctor while stuck on the alien planet, with the Doctor even suggesting to UNIT to look into giving him a position somewhere in the organisation. Moving over to Marvel, he appeared in the first Black Panther film as a friend to T'Challa and husband to Okoye. He was part of the council before betraying the royals and siding with Killmonger. He would eventually back down and accept defeat when he came up against Okoye and learned from her that she would kill him to save Wakanda, despite being married to each other. Whilst he is still alive in the universe, he's not featured in any film since. Gemma Chan also appeared during Tennant's farewell tour, but in a different special this time. She played Mia Bennett in The Waters of Mars. She was one of the few characters to actually survive the episode, but she was so spooked by the end of the episodes, mostly because of the Doctor and the TARDIS, that she would just run off at the end. In the MCU though, she's played two different characters. She played Minerva, a Kree who was in Captain Marvel, where she was up against Carol and the Skrulls. She would then go on to play a second character in Cersei in The Eternals. Although the film was not well received, her character was set up to return in the future. If she does or not, that's another question. Gugu Mbatha-Raw appeared back in Series 3 of Doctor Who as the sister to Martha Jones. She would eventually be held captive at the end of the series on the Valiant alongside most of the Jones family. After Series 3, Martha would leave as a companion and Tish never reappeared in the show again. She would eventually make the jump over to Marvel for the Disney Plus show Loki as Renslayer, a judge of the TVA who was later revealed to be a variant alongside all the other people who worked at the TVA. She was also revealed to originally be a close ally of He Who Remains, who himself was a variant of Kang the Conqueror. Andrew Garfield appeared in Series 3 of the show, in the episodes Daleks in Manhattan and Evolution of the Daleks, as Frank. He was an ally during the episode of the 10th Doctor, during his fight against the Daleks. However, he's more famously known in the second cinematic Spider-Man films, the Amazing Spider-Man franchise. Although they're not as well received as the other two Spider-Man franchises, Andrew Garfield got his chance to return as Spider-Man in the actual MCU this time. He was due to appear in more films, supposedly including Madam Web, but as of yet he hasn't made any more appearances. In the case of Madam Web, they supposedly scrapped him after realising the time frame they set up in the film doesn't actually match Andrew's version of the character. Matt Smith's first Christmas special took on the adaptation of A Christmas Carol, where he would be trying to change the mind of Kazran, the man who controlled the skies, to allow a crashing spaceship a chance of survival. During the episode, the Doctor would travel back and influence a younger version, played by Lawrence Belcher, into making the adult version a better man. This wouldn't be the only time Lawrence would feature as a younger version of a character. He would make the jump over to the Fox Marvel universe, where he would portray a young Charles Xavier in X-Men First Class. Chukwudi Iwuji took part in Series 6 of Doctor Who, having played a role in humanity's fight against the Silence. He played the role of Carl Peterson, an FBI agent in the 60s who was in the Oval Office after the 11th Doctor was caught listening into Nixon and Canton's conversation and the audio tape. He witnessed the TARDIS being uncloaked and he held the Doctor at gunpoint whilst the Doctor was explaining what was going on. However, when he makes a switch to Marvel, he would play antagonist to the Guardians of the Galaxy in The High Evolutionary. The man who made Rocket who he was and has done the same to countless other species, messing with the genetics and wiping out his experiments when he deems them a failure. Finn Jones never actually took part in Doctor Who, but he has a role in the Whoniverse in the Sarah Jane Adventures. He was the grandson of classic companion Joe Grant, and was at the Doctor's fake funeral at a unit base that was set up by the Sanjeev. As Santiago, he actually got to meet the 11th Doctor during the episode, making him one of the few characters on the show who had an adventure with the Doctor. Finn Jones would then go on to star in the Netflix Marvel and stars protagonist Danny Rand, the Iron Fist. He would last 2 series on the show and a role in the team-up miniseries The Defenders. Alan Dale was another character not to appear in Doctor Who, but actually appeared in Torturers, a show where half of the leading cast appeared in the main show anyway. The episode he starred in even featured Series 3 companion Martha Jones. His character won't be making any further appearances though, as he was shot dead by Jack in retaliation to shooting tortured member Owen. His death and tortured is something shared with Marvel. He appeared in Captain America the Winter Soldier as a member of the World Security Council, the group of members who oversaw S.H.I.E.L.D. His fate was sealed towards the end of the film when all but one of the members of the council were killed off by Alexander Pierce. Tallulah Riley appeared in Series 4 of The Revival in River Song's first appearance on the show. Starring as the personal assistant to Strachman Lux, she would go on to die to the Vashta Nerada after exploring on her own due to everyone else ignoring her. Her data goes to carry over into the following episode where she would assist Donna Noble, who herself got uploaded. Her transition over to Marvel was only a small role, as an Asgardian nurse when Thor had brought Jane back to Asgard. Another character to appear in Silence of the Library and Forest of the Dead was O.T. Fagbenle. He also portrayed a character who was eaten by the Vashta Nerada, but survived much further into the story. He would later make the switch over to Marvel to join Black Widow as the character Rick Mason, where he was an ally to Natasha Romanoff and helped her while she was on the run. He would eventually support Nick Fury while he was also on the run during the events of Secret Invasion. We may as well stick with Silence of the Library, as Josh Dallas also makes the cross between this story of Doctor Who and Marvel. He's listed down as Node 2 that reveals that he was the face of Mark Chambers, a man who donated his face after his death. His Marvel appearance came a few years later, when he appeared as Fandral, but he only lasted one film as Josh dropped out as he couldn't take part in the sequel. Tony Curran appeared during Series 5 opposite Matt Smith and Karen Gillan as Vincent Van Gogh, exploring his art, mental health, and the fact that Vincent was the only person actually able to witness the alien creature roaming the streets. Over at Marvel, Tony has had multiple roles. He was the priest in Blade 2, which was a Marvel film under New Line Cinema, Boar, which was Thor's grandfather in Thor the Dark World, Finn in Daredevil, and he also portrayed a Skrull impersonating Derek Weatherby in Secret Invasion. Simon Callow is another actor who played a historical figure across multiple episodes. First appearing as Charles Dickens in The Unkind Dead, he would later reappear in The Wedding of River Song, which was actually 2 Doctors later than his first appearance. His appearance came after all time came together after the break of A Fixed Point. He also appeared in the Sarah Jane Adventures as the voice of a Blaverine, a family who pretended to be peaceful compared to the Slevine family, but were actually part of the same family when the two came together. He would then join the MCU series in Hawkeye as Ahmad Duquesne III, where he was a wealthy man who threatened to expose Kate's mother to her connections to the criminal Wilson Fisk. Christopher Fairbank appeared in the episode Flatline as Fenton for overseeing people doing their community service. He has appeared in 2 Marvel movies, Guardians of the Galaxy and Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, where he played the broker Star-Lord attempted to sell the orb to in the first film, and in the third he returned as an inhabitant of Nowhere. Joseph Millson is another actor to appear in a spin-off rather than the main show, but he appeared during the early days of the show before being written out due to Yasmin Page, the actress who played his on-screen daughter, wanting to focus on her GCSEs. Both were supposedly due to return to the show a few different times as guest roles, notably The Wedding of Sarah Jane Smith, but it never happened due to conflicts. Joseph would then go on to appear in the Disney Plus series Moon Knight as Stephen Grant. The version of Stephen Grant that he plays though is a fictional version from an in-universe film, Toonbuster, meaning Joseph simply plays an actor in the MCU. The character of Stephen Grant would become one of the personas of Mark Spector, who had DID. Felicity Jones would appear in The Unicorn and the Wasp as a thief. She was called Ada Mullins, but for the episode she was going under the identity of Robina Redmond to cover her real name. Felicity would make the Marvel switch when she joined the Sony film Amazing Spider-Man 2, where she appeared as Felicia Hardy, who, if the film series actually continued, would have returned to the role as the Black Cat instead. Olivia Colman joined the cast for Matt Smith's first episode as the Doctor. Her character was a patient who was in a coma in the hospital, but also featured as Prisoner Zero, who was taking the forms of people to hide from the Atraxi, who were searching the Earth for them. When she joined the MCU, it was in Secret Invasion. She essentially joined the role as the British equivalent to Nick Fury. Sonia Falsworth was made acting director of MI6 after revealing the actual director was a Skrull who was undercover. Looking at you there, Tony. Sir Ian McKellen appeared in The Snowmen as the voice of the Great Intelligence. Whilst the Great Intelligence did make a few more appearances after this special, McKellen did not continue with the role, with Richard E. Grant continuing in the role instead, as mentioned earlier on. Whilst many actors do Doctor Who first and then onto Marvel, McKellen is one of the opposites. He starred in the Fox X-Men franchise, appearing in 5 of the films as Magneto. The X-Men films moved away from the older actors to focus on past setting with younger actors, with the franchise ending altogether due to the Disney takeover. But with seemingly a lot of cameos coming in Deadpool, maybe McKellen will return in some way, especially with the multiverse. Alan Cumming matches with McKellen, going from Marvel to Doctor Who. He appeared in one of the 30th Doctor's episodes as King James in The Witchfinders, but as I mentioned before, he appeared in Marvel first, appearing in Fox's X-Men 2 as Nightcrawler. Zawe Ashton appeared in Peter Capaldi's first Dalek episode, which was his second episode on the show. Her character Journey Blue was saved by the Doctor and was with the Doctor inside a Rusty. After the episode, she was turned down by the Doctor when she asked to join him in the TARDIS. This is because the Doctor didn't want a soldier in the TARDIS. Over at Marvel, she was part of the most recent film released, The Marvels, as the antagonist Dar-Benn. She played a Kree warrior who was trying to restore her planet, which her actions caused her to go up against the trio of Marvel heroes. Fun fact, she's actually the fiancée of another Marvel star in Tom Hiddleston, who I'd love to be in Doctor Who one day. Peter Serafinowicz is another actor who went from Marvel to Doctor Who, just like the previous two mentioned. His role was just voice work though. He shared the voice work though for the Fisher King in Before the Flood with Corey Taylor, with Peter doing the main work with Corey only doing the raw. Peter would also appear in the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie as a member of the Nova Corps. He was a high-ranking officer who was anti-Guardians at first, but he joined and helped the Guardians in the fight alongside the rest of the Nova Corps against Ronan by the end of the film. Julian Bleach is well known as the modern era of Davros. He's appeared in both classic Davros form and more recently pre-incident Davros while he's still designing the Daleks. He also appeared in both of RTD's spin-offs as the Ghostmaker in Torchwood and the Nightmare Man in Sarah Jane Adventures. But he also made a brief appearance in Avengers Age of Ultron during the scene where Wanda's warped everyone's minds. Black Widow is experiencing memories of her past in the Red Room and Julian appears as a ballet instructor. Meera Syal appeared in two-part Silurian episodes, The Hungry Earth and Cold Blood, as Nazreen Chowdhury. By the end of the two-part episode, she decided to stay behind and go into hibernation with Tony and the rest of the Silurians, meaning she is a character who could potentially return if they ever decide to pick this story up in the future, post-hibernation. In Marvel, she was part of the first Doctor Strange film, helping Stephen prior to his injuries where she assisted him in surgery. Ryan still appears in Dinosaurs on a Spaceship, where she is one of the few characters the 11th Doctor collects in the TARDIS to help him during the story, and this is her only appearance in the show. She would go on to make an appearance in the second Ant-Man film, Ant-Man and the Wasp, where she would be the mother of Ava, who is the main antagonist of the film, where she appears in a flashback scene that shows her character's death while showing how Ava survived and got her powers. Christine Adams appears in the first series of the revival, In the Long Game, where she helped break the connection to the Jackalfest to the people using computers. Her Marvel appearance would be on the TV series Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., where she was an Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. She survived to the downfall of S.H.I.E.L.D., which crossed over with Captain America the Winter Soldier, and took part in a feud between the two surviving S.H.I.E.L.D. factions before finally coming together, before her character just randomly disappeared from the show altogether. Obviously, I haven't managed to include everyone in this list. There's going to be a lot more actors who have made appearances in both. If you know anyone that I've missed, let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next one.